It was during my sophomore year at Yale that I got assigned to Durfee Hall, one of the oldest dormitories on campus, located right along Old Campus. Durfee was beautiful in the daytime, with its tall arched windows and ivy-covered stone. But once the sun set, it became something else. The creaking floors, the strange drafts that blew through sealed windows, the constant feeling that someone was watching you. It was almost unbearable at night. At first, I thought it was just the usual freshman ghost stories, people trying to scare each other. But by the third week, I knew something was wrong. It started with the screaming. It would happen around 2:30 or 3 a.m., always when the campus was dead silent. I would wake up, heart pounding, to the sound of someone, a woman, by the sound of it, screaming somewhere deep inside the building. It wasn't a sharp scream like someone getting hurt. It was a long, low, guttural scream, like a person trapped, crying out for help over and over again. The first night, I thought it was a drunken student. The second night, I thought maybe it was a mental breakdown. By the fifth night, I stopped making excuses. Every time I tried to follow the sound, it would move. Down the stairs, around the corner, into the old and used laundry rooms in the basement. Always just out of reach. One night, my roommate, Sam, and I decided we would find the source once and for all. We stayed up late, armed with our phones, flashlights ready. Sure enough, around 2:45 a.m., the first low, drawn-out scream echoed through the hall. We jumped up and followed it down the narrow staircase leading into the basement, a place we were specifically told by the RA to stay out of. The basement was colder than the rest of the building, the kind of cold that seemed to seep straight into your bones. We followed the noise through twisting corridors lined with rusted pipes and crumbling brick. At the very end of one long hallway, we found an old wooden door, slightly ajar. The screaming was coming from behind it. Sam hesitated, but I pushed the door open. There was no one there. Just an empty, pitch-black room, and a thick, heavy feeling of sadness that made my chest tighten. When we turned to leave, we heard it again, but this time, it was right behind us. We spun around, but there was still no one there. Just the sound, raw and heart-wrenching, as if something, or someone, was trapped between the walls. We bolted upstairs without looking back. Later, we found out that back in the late 1800s, Durfee Hall had suffered a fire. A fire that had claimed the life of a young woman, a servant girl working for one of the professors who lived in the dorms. Some say she was locked inside one of the basement rooms by accident. Some say it wasn't an accident at all. Whatever the truth was, her screams are still heard, night after night, by those unlucky enough to live within the old stone walls of Durfee Hall. I had always loved studying late at Sterling Memorial Library. There was something about the Gothic architecture, the massive stained glass windows, and the towering shelves that made it feel like stepping back in time. But if I had known what I would encounter there one night, I would have never stayed past midnight. It was during finals week, spring semester. The library was open 24/7, and most students came in groups to stay awake together. That night, however, I was alone. My friends had called it early, but I was determined to finish a paper due the next morning. By the time I looked up from my laptop, it was almost 2 a.m. The library was almost deserted. Just me, the security guard at the front desk, and maybe one or two other students scattered among the endless rows of books. I gathered my things and headed toward the exit. As I walked down the long main aisle, I had this feeling, a prickling at the back of my neck, like someone was following me. I turned around. The aisle was empty. I shook it off and kept walking. But then, out of the corner of my eye, I saw it. A figure. standing perfectly still in one of the reading alcoves between the stacks. At first, I thought it was just another student, someone lost in thought. But the more I looked, the more wrong it felt. The figure was completely black, not just dark clothing, but an absence of light, like a hole punched through reality. It had no features, no face, just a human shape that seemed to pulse slightly against the dim library lighting. And it was staring directly at me. I blinked, and in that blink, it moved. Closer. About 2 feet closer. I didn't hear footsteps. No rustle of movement. It was just suddenly, closer. My heart slammed into my ribs. I backed away slowly, never taking my eyes off it. Another blink, and it was closer again. 10 feet away now. I turned and ran. I didn't look back. I sprinted through the main hall, practically throwing myself out the library's massive front doors into the cool night air. When I reached the street, gasping for breath, I risked one quick glance back at the library entrance. Nothing. Just the heavy wooden doors swinging gently in the breeze. I tried to tell myself I had imagined it. Stress, exhaustion, too much caffeine. Until I heard other students talking a few days later. One girl said she saw a shadow figure standing silently near the stacks around 3 a.m., staring at her until she fled. Another claimed she woke up in one of the study carrels after a nap and saw a tall, black figure standing at the end of the table, just watching her. Security guards? They refused to patrol certain wings after midnight. One older guard even admitted, in a low voice, "There are some things in that library we don't question. We just don't go looking for them." Sterling Library was built in 1930. It houses some of Yale's oldest collections, and, apparently, something else, something that waits in the shadows for those who stay too long after dark. If you ever find yourself alone in Sterling past midnight, don't blink. Yale is famous, or maybe infamous, for its secret societies. The most legendary of all is Skull and Bones, a group so cloaked in mystery that even among students, it's treated almost like a myth. I never expected to get anywhere near it. I was a regular student, focused on keeping my grades up. But sometimes, fate has other plans. It started with an anonymous invitation slipped under my dorm room door. Thick parchment paper, no sender, just a time, a place, and a symbol, a black skull stamped at the bottom. Curiosity, or stupidity, got the better of me. At 11:30 p.m., I found myself outside the tomb, the windowless stone building in the middle of Yale's campus that supposedly housed the Bones men. The door creaked open without me touching it. Inside was darkness. No candles, no lights. Just a faint smell of old stone and something metallic, like rust or blood. A low voice instructed me to walk forward. I could barely see where I was going. I stumbled into a large, cold room where I could feel more than a dozen pairs of eyes watching me from the darkness. The voice spoke again. "To join, you must see and be seen." I waited, heart hammering. Then, a single match struck. In the brief, flickering light, I saw them. Figures in black robes, faces obscured by bone-white masks. And behind them, at the far end of the room, something that was not wearing a mask. Its face was pale, too pale, skin stretched unnaturally tight over bone, hollow black eyes staring through me. The match went out. Total darkness returned. I stumbled backward, muttering that I wasn't interested, that this had to be some sort of prank. But the voice whispered again, closer this time. Once you are seen, you cannot be unseen. I ran. I don't remember how I found the door, or how I got back to my dorm. I just know that for the next several nights, I saw it, that pale, hollow-eyed figure, standing outside my window. Always at 3:33 a.m. Always just watching. Weeks later, desperate, I went to the university archives to research Skull and Bones. One account, buried deep in a forgotten file, suggested that their rituals were not just symbolic. That once, decades ago, a member had died during an initiation ceremony, but the group had covered it up, continuing their traditions with them still present. Maybe it's just a story. Maybe not. All I know is, to this day, whenever I pass by the tomb after dark, I feel those black, hollow eyes still following me. Saybrook College was where I spent my senior year. It's one of Yale's residential colleges, beautiful, traditional, steeped in history. It's also haunted. When I moved into my room, it came with a strange detail. It used to be the office of an old philosophy professor, Dr. Emery, who had taught at Yale for over 30 years before dying suddenly, right there, in that very room. At first, it didn't bother me. I even joked about it to my friends. Guess I'm rooming with a ghost this year. But the jokes stopped about a month in. The first sign was the books. No matter how I stacked them, arranged them, or even boxed them up, I would find them every morning placed carefully, ritualistically, on the center of my desk, open to random pages. At first, I thought it was a prank, until I realized the pages they opened to always had something in common. They were all discussions about death, about the persistence of the soul. Then came the dreams. I would wake up, heart racing, after vivid nightmares where I was trapped inside old lecture halls, endlessly repeating philosophical debates with a faceless professor. No matter what I said, I could never leave the room. One night, I woke to the sound of chalk scraping against the blackboard. Except there was no blackboard in my room. I sat up, listening. The noise was real. In the dim glow of my laptop, I saw it, words, appearing one by one, being scratched into the air above my desk. Invisible hand. Visible message. Stay, discuss, understand. That was it for me. I packed up and moved to a friend's room across campus. The RA later admitted that my room had a history. Several students over the years had reported similar experiences. Some lasted only days before demanding to move out. They said Dr. Emery had been obsessed with the idea that death wasn't the end, that the mind could persist in spaces charged with enough intellectual energy. Maybe he was right. Maybe he's still trying to teach. Still trying to debate. Long after his last class ended. Want more true horror stories from real haunted places? Hit subscribe and turn on notifications, if you dare.